Today, I want to talk to you about paraphrasing, right? Merriam-Webster tells us that when we paraphrase, we restate a text, a passage or work, given the meaning in another form, right? It is also the use of process of paraphrasing in studying or teaching composition. Sorry, that's not relevant. But I want this idea of restating the meaning in another form. Oxford tells us that we express something that has been said using different words, usually making it easier to understand. And paráfrasis en español es una explicación amplificativa de un texto para ilustrarlo o hacerlo más claro. We also have the term perífrasis, una expresión pluriverbal, cuyo significado se asimila parcialmente a la de una unidad léxica. La perífrasis, echar una conversada, se asimila al verbo conversar. And if we go to Oxford, perífrasis, it's an indirect way of speaking. We use separate words to express a grammatical relationship between words, and Merriam-Webster tells us that periphrasis is a longer phrasing in place of a possible shorter expression. Es decir, que no vayamos a confundir perífrasis, que por lo general tiene esa tendencia a ser una verbalización más larga. I want to stay with the idea of paraphrasing, right? And how we find something, other words. So, when we practice paraphrasing together, what I am going to ask you is actually two things. One is that you find other words to say what is being expressed in English. And this is usually to also not just find other words, but usually to see if you can use other structures, if you can use the same word with another function, that is to say, perform conversion or functional shift, right? So basically, in that case, we will be practicing the language, the structures of the language. But also, and most importantly, I wanted to paraphrase to show you understand the meaning, right? And I will push it, and I will ask you to explain everything that is involved in a certain expression, right? So that you spell out. Remember, we talked about figurative language. We don't spell things out. I'm actually asking you to, when I ask you to paraphrase, I am asking you to do exactly the opposite. Now, imagine this expression, right? To be at the receiving end, which is an expression we use a lot in English, right? We need to go down a little bit. To be at the receiving end of something, to be the person that an action is directed at, especially an unpleasant one. So she found herself on the receiving end of a great deal of criticism. This means that she was being criticized. People criticized her. So an expression we see in class sometimes when we read an article about eye rolling, and a father says, when I am at the receiving end of an eye roll, that is to say, when the child rolls her or his eyes at me or at you, whoever is speaking, right? And also this involves that it is something unpleasant. This eye rolling is not just something, a physical action, but rather a sign of disrespect. Now, in this sense, also, I want us to go up, and this happens also with noun plus noun combinations, which we're going to see later, right? What is the guilt trip? Is it a trip in which guilt is involved? Is it a real trip? No. What is a pipe dream? Is it a dream in which there are pipes? No. And what is to be oblivious, right? I like this word, and so I wanted you to use it. What is to be oblivious to criticism? Is it just not to be aware of it? Because if you look it up here, Merriam-Webster will say, okay, lacking remembrance, memory, but what if we go down and we find other examples, right? The cat is oblivious to its presence in the room. Okay, we were oblivious to the presence of the cat, sorry. Okay, we didn't notice it. But what about the fact that the child had brought in a snake she discovered in the garden, oblivious of the promise, notice you can say of the promise she'd made to leave all found creatures outside. So maybe I will ask you that she had been asked to leave creatures outside, but she had completely forgotten about it. Actually, all these are rephrasings, similar rephrasings of the same meanings, right? Of the same sentences, right? So I want you to remember basically that when you are paraphrasing, you're practicing language, one, and you are showing you understand. And one last thing we're going to do here is to go to the word advantage, yes, and the expression take advantage. And I want you to see that there are two senses for take advantage. One is to make use of something well, so he took advantage of the hotel facilities, and another one is to make use in a way that is unfair. ¿Por qué saco esto a colación? Porque take advantage, por lo general, lo igualamos a aprovecharse. Entonces, ¿se aprovechó de lo que había en el hotel? No. Usó todo lo que el hotel le ofrecía. Y acá sí se aprovechó de mi generosidad. So, when we paraphrase, we explain meaning and we use language. Okay? Thank you very much. That is all.